Ricky Gervais has never been one to follow the rules, in comedy, in life, or in love. But after decades of staying quiet on one very personal topic, he's finally said something that has everyone talking. Why, after all these years, has he chosen not to marry his longtime partner? Stick around as we uncover what Gervais finally revealed and why it's left fans both surprised and impressed. Ricky Gervais's unlikely rise. Ricky Gervais was born on June 25, 1961, in Reading, Berkshire, a town in southern England. He grew up in a working-class family in the suburb of Whitley. His father, Lawrence Gervais, was a French-Canadian who worked as a laborer and hod carrier, while his mother, Eva, was English and stayed at home to raise the children. Ricky was the youngest of 4 siblings. Money was tight, but the home was full of laughter. His early life helped shape the way he saw the world, real, down-to-earth, and always ready to question everything. By the time he was a young teenager, Gervais identified as an atheist. He said that the moment he realized he didn't believe in God was simple. He asked his mother why God let children die, and she told him not to question things like that. But that wasn't enough for him. From that point on, he believed in reason and facts, not faith. This way of thinking would later show up in his comedy, which often challenges traditional beliefs and pushes boundaries. Before he became a famous comedian, Ricky tried something completely different. In the early 1980s, while studying philosophy at University College London, he formed a pop duo called Siona Dancing with his friend Bill McRae. They signed with London Records and released a couple of singles. One of them, More to Lose, later became a hit in the Philippines, but it didn't do much in the UK. Gervais, with his signature confidence, later laughed about the experience, saying he knew even then that pop music might not be where he'd make his name. After music didn't work out, Ricky started working in radio and television. He took a job at XFM, a London-based radio station, where he met Stephen Merchant, a young graduate working as an intern. That meeting changed everything. Gervais saw talent in Merchant, and the two quickly formed a creative partnership. Together, they created a mockumentary-style sitcom called The Office. At first, The Office was a hard sell. It had a dry, awkward style that was very different from traditional British comedy. The characters seemed real, not like actors. It was shot like a documentary with long silences and uncomfortable moments. But when it finally aired on the BBC in 2001, it struck a nerve. The show followed David Brent, a clueless and self-absorbed office manager at a paper company in Slough. Brent was played by Gervais himself, and the character quickly became one of the most iconic in British TV history. The success of The Office changed Gervais's life overnight. It won awards, attracted loyal fans, and made people see comedy in a new way. But the biggest surprise came when the show was adapted in the United States. After the success of The Office, Gervais continued to create unique shows that blended comedy with emotion. In Extras, he played Andy Millman, a struggling actor surrounded by celebrities who were often willing to poke fun at themselves. The show explored themes of fame, disappointment, and staying true to yourself. Like The Office, it was both funny and sad, something Gervais became known for. Next came Derek, a heartfelt series about a kind and simple man who works in a care home. Critics were divided on whether it was too sentimental or perfectly touching, but many praised Gervais for taking risks and showing his softer side. In 2019, he released Afterlife, a series about a man dealing with the death of his wife. It was raw, emotional, and full of dark humor. The show became a global hit on Netflix and proved once again that Gervais could mix comedy with deep human stories. It ran for 3 seasons and earned him praise for its honest look at grief, depression, and finding meaning in life after loss. Up next, we look at how Ricky's brutally honest personality helped and hurt him. Ricky's no-filter era. Ricky Gervais is not the kind of comedian who holds back. He says exactly what he thinks, even when he knows people might not like it. In fact, sometimes he says things because he knows they'll make people uncomfortable. That's part of who he is. Over the years, Gervais has built a reputation as someone who is blunt, unapologetic, and deliberately provocative. He doesn't care about being politically correct, and he has no interest in playing it safe. One of Gervais's core beliefs is that offense is not the same as harm. This idea comes up often in his interviews and stand-up specials. He believes that just because someone feels offended doesn't mean they've been hurt in a real way. To him, offense is a personal reaction. It's emotional, not physical. Gervais argues that no one has the right to never be offended. He believes everyone should be free to speak their mind, even if others don't like what they hear. In his view, protecting free speech is more important than protecting people's feelings. Because of this, Gervais has always rejected political correctness. He sees it as a kind of censorship, a way to stop people from saying things that are true, funny, or important. He believes that political correctness tries to clean up the world too much and makes it harder to talk about real issues. Instead of being afraid to speak, Gervais wants comedians and others to be honest, even if it's uncomfortable. He often says that difficult topics are the ones most worth discussing. Gervais has had many clashes with the media and the public over the years. Some people love his boldness, while others think he goes too far. He's been criticized for jokes about religion, gender, celebrities, and even death. He's also had heated debates online, especially on Twitter, where he often responds directly to critics. But Gervais doesn't back down. He believes that once you start apologizing for jokes, comedy loses its power. As an outspoken atheist, Gervais has also made a name for himself as a strong critic of organized religion. He's spoken openly about his disbelief in God and often jokes about religious beliefs in his stand-up routines. Some people see this as brave, while others view it as disrespectful. Gervais insists he's not trying to hurt anyone, he's just sharing what he believes and using humor to do it. He says he respects people's right to believe, but he also wants the right to question those beliefs. He's also known for calling out celebrities in the entertainment industry. Whether it's mocking their wealth, their fake activism, or their sense of importance, Gervais often targets people in power. This has made him a bit of an outsider in Hollywood, even though he's part of that world. He doesn't try to fit in. He's more interested in being honest than being liked. Gervais doesn't expect everyone to agree with him. In fact, he doesn't want that. He wants people to think. He wants people to ask questions, laugh at the absurd, and be honest about the world around them. That's what his comedy is all about. Next, we'll look at the night Ricky truly stunned the world, when he stepped on stage at the 2020 Golden Globes and didn't hold back. The 2020 Global Globes night. On January 5th, 2020, Ricky Gervais walked onto the stage of the Beverly Hilton Hotel in Los Angeles to host the 77th Golden Globe Awards. It was his fifth and, according to him, final time hosting the show. From the moment he started speaking, it was clear this wasn't going to be a typical awards night. Gervais wasn't there to flatter the celebrities in the room or play it safe. Instead, he delivered a monologue that would send shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. Gervais's opening speech lasted just under 8 minutes, but it changed the tone of the entire event. He called out powerful people in the room, joked about serious topics, and openly mocked the Hollywood elite. The speech wasn't light or polite. It was bold, biting, and brutally honest. One of the most talked about moments came when Gervais brought up Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced financier who was arrested for trafficking and later died in jail. Gervais said, "I know he was your friend," while looking around the room. The crowd responded with groans and nervous laughter. He quickly replied, "Shut up. I know he's your friend, but I don't care." It was a direct hit on Hollywood's history of turning a blind eye to the behavior of powerful men. He also took aim at big tech companies like Apple, Amazon, and Disney. Gervais praised The Morning Show, an Apple TV Plus drama about ethics in the workplace, but added that Apple runs sweatshops in China. He continued by mocking celebrities for working with corporations that don't always practice what they preach, saying, "You say you're woke, but the companies you work for are unbelievable." This was a clear dig at what he saw as corporate virtue signaling, when people or companies talk about doing good, but don't follow through with real action. But the line that defined the night came near the end of his speech. Gervais looked straight into the camera and told the celebrities in the room, "You're in no position to lecture the public about anything." He went on to say that most of them had spent less time in school than climate activist Greta Thunberg. "If you do win an award," he added, "don't use it as a platform to make a political speech." The reaction to the monologue was immediate and intense. Many celebrities in the audience looked stunned. Some laughed uncomfortably. Others clearly didn't find it funny. Gervais didn't seem to care. He even reminded the audience more than once that he didn't care. He had no fear of being disliked, and he wasn't worried about being invited back. In fact, he repeated that this was his last time hosting, and he seemed glad about it. After the show, media outlets and fans around the world were divided. Some people and publications criticized Gervais for being too harsh, too rude, or inappropriate. They felt that some of his jokes crossed the line or disrespected serious issues. Others praised him as the only person willing to tell the truth in a room full of powerful people. They admired him for calling out hypocrisy, especially in a time when public trust in celebrity culture was already fading. On social media, clips of the monologue went viral. Millions of people watched and shared the speech. Some called it a brilliant takedown of Hollywood hypocrisy. Others said it was exactly the kind of speech the world needed to hear. It started conversations not just about comedy, but about the role of celebrities, the limits of political correctness, and the difference between saying the right thing and doing the right thing. Gervais has often said he values integrity over performance. That night, he stayed true to that. He didn't perform to please the crowd. He didn't soften his message to protect his career. He said what he believed, knowing full well that it might cost him. That's why, love him or hate him, so many people respected what he did on that stage. The 2020 Golden Globes monologue wasn't just a comedy routine. It was a clear message. It was Ricky Gervais standing up in front of one of the most powerful groups in the world and reminding them that they aren't above criticism. It was uncomfortable, yes, but it was also honest, sharp, and unforgettable. Ricky's controversial moments. Ricky Gervais has never been one to avoid controversy. In fact, he often seems to walk straight into it. Whether he's on stage, in an interview, or especially on Twitter, Gervais says exactly what he thinks, and he rarely backs down when people disagree. Over the years, this has led to many public feuds, heated debates, and strong reactions from both fans and critics. But behind all the noise is a man who believes deeply in one thing: the right to speak freely, even if it upsets people. One of the main places where Gervais's outspoken nature comes through is on Twitter. He joined the platform in its early days and quickly built a huge following. But unlike many celebrities who use social media for promotions or polished statements, Gervais used it like a public diary. He joked, debated, mocked, and challenged others, often stirring up headlines in the process. His tweets have ranged from sarcastic one-liners to long threads defending his views on religion, free speech, comedy, and human rights. Some of his most controversial online feuds have been with activists and advocacy groups. Gervais has clashed with some trans activists, especially over his comments about gender and self-identification. Critics have accused him of being insensitive or transphobic, pointing to jokes or comments he's made that they say mock trans people. Gervais, in response, says he supports trans rights but doesn't think that means comedians should be banned from joking about the topic. He insists that making jokes about a subject doesn't mean you hate or target a group. Another group that Gervais has had issues with online is animal rights critics, which is interesting because Gervais is a passionate animal lover and outspoken supporter of animal welfare. He frequently shares content about protecting animals and even donates to animal charities. But he has still received backlash from certain activists who don't like his choice of words or his jokes about hunting, meat-eating, or veganism. Gervais often responds by explaining that you can care deeply about a cause and still make jokes around it. For him, humor doesn't cancel out compassion. Rather than shy away from the criticism, Gervais seems to embrace being canceled. He has joked about cancel culture many times in his stand-up shows and interviews. He calls it a modern form of censorship and doesn't take it seriously. Gervais says that if being canceled means telling the truth or defending freedom of speech, then he wears it like a badge of honor. He believes that cancel culture often confuses disagreement with danger, that people think hearing an offensive joke is the same as being attacked, which he strongly disagrees with. At the heart of many of his controversies is Gervais's defense of free speech in comedy. He has always believed that comedians should be allowed to joke about any topic. That includes religion, politics, identity, death, and more. He argues that once you start creating lists of off-limits subjects, comedy loses its purpose. In his view, jokes are how society deals with pain and pressure. Taking that away only makes people more sensitive and less open to honest conversations. He's not alone in this belief. While the media has often criticized Gervais, calling him cruel, arrogant, or outdated, Many of his fellow comedians have defended him. Names like Jerry Seinfeld, Dave Chappelle, and Bill Burr have praised his honesty and supported his right to push boundaries. They argue that Gervais is doing what comedians are supposed to do, say the things others are afraid to say, even when it makes people uncomfortable. There's also an important difference between how the public often sees Gervais and who he really is in private. To some people, especially those who only see his more controversial moments, Gervais comes across as confrontational or mean. But people who know him personally paint a very different picture. Friends and colleagues have described him as kind, generous, and extremely loyal. He's known to quietly support charities, help people behind the scenes, and show deep compassion, especially when it comes to animals and people in need. Gervais and his longtime partner, Fallon, have donated large amounts of money to animal shelters and medical charities. He often speaks kindly about his fans and tries to engage with them, even when they disagree with him. In interviews, his humor is still sharp, but his tone is often softer and more thoughtful than his public image might suggest. What all of this shows is that Gervais is a man who values honesty over popularity. He doesn't aim to offend, but he refuses to pretend or hold back just to be accepted. He believes people should be able to laugh, debate, and even argue without fear of being silenced. For Gervais, controversy isn't the goal, but he accepts it as a side effect of speaking his mind. Meet Fallon. While Ricky Gervais is often front and center in the public eye, on stages, in interviews, or trending on Twitter, there's one person who has been quietly by his side for more than 4 decades, Fallon. She's not just his partner, she's also a successful woman in her own right, with a long list of achievements to her name. Though she prefers to stay out of the spotlight, Fallon has played a major role in Gervais's life, offering him stability, support, and a deep connection that has stood the test of time. So who is Fallon? Fallon is a British author and television producer. Before becoming known for her best-selling novels, she spent years working in TV, helping to shape some of the UK's most popular drama series. She was a producer on EastEnders, one of Britain's longest-running soap operas, and also worked on other shows like This Life and Teachers. Her career in television gave her experience in storytelling and character development, skills she later used to launch a very successful writing career. As a novelist, Fallon has written multiple books that have landed on bestseller lists. Some of her most popular titles include Getting Rid of Matthew, Faking Friends, Tell Me a Secret, and Worst Idea Ever. Her books often focus on relationships, betrayal, and life's complicated twists, and they've been praised for being sharp, funny, and relatable. Unlike many celebrity partners who live in the shadow of their famous spouse, Jane has built her own brand, identity, and fan base. She's often described as talented, thoughtful, and down-to-earth. Ricky Gervais has said many times that he's proud of her success and loves that she has her own world and career outside of his. They support each other but